A diverse workplace is not just a better workplace, it is also a more productive one. In fact, several studies have shown that how diverse organizations outperform their less diverse peers on profitability. And despite the business case, it has only 20% of the board positions in the country for listed companies are held by women. With this context, let me quickly dive into the discussion. Lavanya, I would like to start with you. You were the first woman in the family to join the business, and you joined and you introduced some very radical, initiatives. You launched a contemporary private label. You tried to rebrand, Nalli's, where it was more relatable to younger women. You also focused a lot more on the omni-channel presence for the brand. So I would like to hear from you, what was your experience like? Did you face any resistance, like you just joined and now?
Thank you. So I've had a couple of stints at Nalli. So I started in 2005 when I graduated. And I knew nothing about saris, so I was a computer engineer like every, I think, good South Indian girl. And that was my first stint. And then I was out of the business for about 7 years. Went to the US, Harvard McKinsey, came back to Myntra, and I never thought that I'd get back into Nalli. So it took 7 years for me to come back. The first stint in 2005, it was a very different world back then. So there was resistance, not overtly, but I would say that I was indulged, like I was tolerated. It was more this mindset of, okay, let her do something till she gets married. How badly can she mess it up? We'll clean it up later. And then I think things changed when I came back the second time around, because by then I had earned my stripes, so to speak, right? So I came in with more credibility, with more external validation. I think I always had that inner confidence, but sometimes it's different when it's reflected in the eyes of external folk, and then people look at you a little bit differently. So I think the second time around there was not so much resistance, I think a little bit of concern.
Very interesting. Dr. Rajesh, I will come to you on this after this, because Urjita also is here and she has joined a family business and has a similar story. So I would like to hear your experience as well on this front.
So I actually left India when I was quite young, when I was 17. I thought that was my one-way ticket to freedom and self-discovery. I moved back to Chennai about 11 years later, and I was going to take a sabbatical. That was what I was going to do. I landed on a Thursday morning. On Friday morning, my dad was like, Vama, kuch nera vela polam, which loosely translates to, let's go out for a bit. He took me to work. And he said, you just pick and see whatever you like. So I was a very accidental entry. I was a trained clinician. I was very content with the clinical work I was doing. I was genuinely hoping to pursue that. But moving back to India and entering corporate healthcare, I genuinely found that I could contribute more to women's health in a leadership capacity. And that's what I've been doing, The challenges, I think I completely resonate with what Lavanya was saying. You may be a very confident person, but credibility has to be earned. And traditionally in India, especially in our corporate culture, the sort of things that you look for in leaders now, your buzzwords, your EQ, your resilience, your higher, operating levels emotionally, are exactly the same attributes that we shun women. We're reprimanding women for the same things, and we look for the same in male colleagues. So in a way, it's been a lot of unlearning that these are the societal expectations, but also the only way to bring in, a fresh style of leadership is by being authentic to ourselves.
Very interesting. So yes, women do have to work way harder to prove themselves. Dr. Rajesh, now I'll go back to the earlier number I raised about, about how 20% of the board positions are held by women directors. This was 5% a decade back. Do you see the glass as half empty or half full?
At the outset, Sonal, let me say what a pleasure it is to be here
Thank
at
you.
the India Today Women's Summit on gender equity. And I want to just take a minute to share what this term equity is. It's often confused for equality, which it is not. And sometimes it's also considered to be part of the financial world. So, equity stakeholder and equity shares and stuff like that. This gender equity is of great importance to each one of you, women in the audience, and also to the men. Let me explain. Gender equity is the series of steps taken by anybody. It could be by the government, it could be by your educational institutions. I see a lot of young girls from Stella, awesome, great college. I also find that it can be taken, gender equity steps can be taken by your own family. Of course, it can be taken by organizations when they say things like, can we earmark certain number of board positions for women? What is gender equity then? Equity is the route to equality. So if you want gender equality, then you have to do away with a lot of inequalities which are there. And this aspect of gender equity, which is either by providing girls with special type of skills, like what the Nan Mudalvan scheme does here in, Tamil Nadu, or providing second career women with reskilling opportunities to get back into the workplace, or even mentoring programs, or like, Lavanya and Dr. Urjita said, opportunities for them to prove themselves. All of these are what equity means. And when all of these boxes of equity are ticked, the outcome is equality. So when you look at the board positions that we are talking about, and if there are 20% of women there, that is most certainly glass half full. I'm very glad about it. And I should say this because for the past 24 years, my organization Avatar, and I have two of my colleagues here, Rashmi Ravindran and Richard, we have been working in the space of increasing women's workforce participation. And one of the things we've realized is getting women at the entry level, getting women at the mid-level, great stuff. But the actual change happens when you have women leaders like this, when you have women at the top. And so when you have earmarked board positions and you say, and I'm sure a lot of people would feel that this is quota and this is reservation and, women should strive for it. Why do they need, for it to be reserved and so on? I would say that if you have enough number of women at the top, that's when the change really begins. This fighting your way from the bottom, too tough. I would rather that we fought from positions of power. So, yeah.
Very interesting. Yes, this deserves a round of applause. Very interesting insights, Dr. Rajesh. So Lavanya, as you now, took over the reins of the business, and Dr. Rajesh also said that how, when you are in that position of power, you have the ability, you have the capability to lead change. And you did mention in our earlier conversation about how Nalli's has 50-50 diversity. A big round of applause for that, please. And this is phenomenal in today's time, right? So, but yet, the interesting part was you said that there are no formal HR policies and structures in place. Can you talk to us a bit more about that in detail?
Yes. So, clarification, that was, I'm talking about the corporate structure and the, so there, I guess where all the decisions happen, so to speak, we do have good representation. And I see the advantage and the merit of having policies, right? Because it's a very result-oriented way of driving change. You have an outcome focus. The moment you have a goal and an outcome focus, we start as leaders to investigate what is it that's going to take us towards that goal, what is it that detracts from that goal. Having said that, for whatever reason, in every other aspect of my life, I'm fairly result-oriented, but for this, I took a different approach. And I said, look, I do want good diversity and good gender representation, but I didn't want to do it with just a result approach to say, look, I want to see these many people. That's an outcome. What I did do instead when I came back to the business the second time and started was to understand and investigate why was there drop-offs, right? And to your point, I think as women go up the ladder, you tend to see that it's not the entry positions that are a problem, but there tend to be drops-offs. And it's a larger issue, it's a societal issue, it's a very complex sort of an issue. Just corporate themselves can't solve it. I think we do need societal change. If there's one thing that we should take away from it, it's that this is a larger collective sort of outcome that we should aspire toward as a nation. But when I started investigating within the corporate sphere why this was happening within my own unit, what I discovered was there's a lot of subconscious biases. A lot of the reporting managers or who would become the reporting managers would have these subconscious biases. And those were the places where I adopted a more sort of counseling approach, where I would investigate and say, okay, have you noticed of all of the resumes that's coming to your desk, which ones actually make the short list? And then after that, have you noticed, I started having them write their debrief after each interview. So that, are you asking the exact same question, right? Are you giving everyone an equal chance? You're asking certain questions to certain candidates, but not to other candidates. How much of that is a reflection of your internal biases? And so once we started codifying that data, I had enough actual sort of facts and demonstrated behaviors for me to say, look, now I'm going to have a factual conversation with you. We are going to standardize your interview process. This is how you need to start looking. These are the traits and qualities that you need to start looking for any position at any level. And I think that made a very big difference.
Interesting. Urjita, now a similar question to you about, in the healthcare space, so actually two questions. One is, while, the whole healthcare space is associated with, caring, nurturing, and we do see a lot of, the role of nursing is associated with women. In fact, a lot of equal number of men and women enter the medical colleges and the healthcare industry. But again, we don't have many department heads or, hospitals led by women doctors. Why is that?
I'll take 2 steps back.
Yes.
So, as you rightly pointed out, I come from both the medical education and corporate healthcare background. From the medical education side, as you rightly said, we see a very strong representation of women when they enter first year of undergraduate medical education. Even last year, in 2023, out of 20 odd lakh medical aspirants, 11.8 lakhs were women, the remaining men. So we have no problem at the entry level as with other industries. And as you observed, we do see a heavy population of women, again, sitting at your mid-managerial levels, and almost in very nurturing, caring roles, which require high empathy, but also what we classify as low growth potential roles. Growth potential in 2 senses. Low growth potential in terms of career trajectory, and also low growth potential in terms of pay parity. At the end of the day, we need the women to be paid at the same level as their male colleagues. So this is a problem that we observe as well. And of course, it is very societal, very cultural, etc. But things that do help us in healthcare sort of slightly, improve keeping these women, and not having them drop off, is actually having some degree of freedom to explore their career paths, especially nurses. Out of the 50 to 60% women who are there in our organization, majority, 80% are nurses. And for them to truly grow in their careers, they need to be able to explore besides what they can do in their nursing capacity. So we give opportunities to women. We tell them, what else would you like to do? Even as I speak now,